Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So, I went on an adventure to find more interesting builds for you guys to potentially look at. I know one of the biggest issues at the league start is what bloody build am I going to play again for another league? Now, some of us play one build every league, some of us play like 20 builds like myself. So I thought I'd present a few more options here and another 5. Now, these vary in tankability. These aren't specifically delve builds, so I know I put up. I'll look at doing a curation for delve builds probably in the next 2 days. But these are just all other different types of builds to give you an idea of other areas of the game that you can focus on if you want to try something different. So anyway, without holding us up too much and talking too much crap, let's get into it. Get into another 5 builds for your potential league starter for 3.22. Okay, so the first build that we've got here is actually from Chronic Painless, and I found this one really interesting because Cold BV is a classic build, and it's just like one of those builds that you play, and it works, and it's awesome. Fundamentally how it works is you run Blade Vortex on the Occultist, you run around with it active, obviously you got to run around and then pop it a few times to keep it going and up and running. And essentially what you do is you freeze everything, and as you freeze everything with your BVs, you then inflict damage using things like hypothermia and whatnot, cold pen, and you just rip through enemies. It's actually an extremely fast build for mapping, really good build for most other content, and one of the big advantages is playing Sanctum. You can just freeze everything now that Sanctum's back in the game, run around and kite and do a ton of damage to everything around. Now, is it the most tanky build in the world? No, but it's a solid, it's just a rock solid build used league on league, and it just works. Now, the advantage of the tree that Painless has actually put up is this is one of the most comprehensively broken down trees I have ever seen in any of these curations, to the point where he's mapped the skills from like Act 1 through to your various budget levels, through to Occultist swap, through to impossible escape inclusions, and then basically provided a full leveling tree that goes with that, going through all your runs from, level 9 all the way through to level 98. And and the rungs in between, so like 18, 30, 41, 64, 88, yada yada yada. And then not to mention, he's basically provided a novel's worth of explanation about how to early map, late mapping, investment targeting, tanking up, spell suppression, maximization, switching out the build from elementalist to occultist later in the game. Pretty much everything that you would need to know is in the notes section of this POB, which is unbelievable. Anyway, check his channel out. Make sure you like and follow his channel, because he's actually really good to listen to when he's explaining this as well. He actually makes really good videos. And yeah, definitely if you want to play something different, a little more classic, then Cold BV is definitely a solid pick to play for your league starter. Okay, so build number 2, we're also going back to a classic here because I thought it'd be awesome, and I saw this and it just looked cool. So we've got Anime Princess here with his Spark Inquisitor. Now, one of the really cool things about his guide that he's put up is he's got like a playlist attached here for like 25 different videos around how to level this and play this Spark build. So there's quite a lot of content he's got on this. He's really put some time into this. Now, if you don't know what Spark is like the original skill that you used to see in D2. Basically, you shoot out little spark projectiles around you, and the higher the volume, they bounce off walls and basically kill everything in maps and whatever. It's actually really good in Delve. Used to use it a lot in the Simulacrum and stuff like that. But overall, it's just a very solid build to play. Now, on the Inquisitor, it maxes out Critical Strike, which is, made a hell of a lot easier with that particular ascendancy. And so, from a tankability standpoint, it's a moderately tanky build. Like, he's got like 54.7 thousand effective hit pool, so it's not like God tier, but it'll work really well. Now, one of the other big advantages of his build guide here is he's got a hugely fleshed out POB, or PO, was it POB.BB? Anyway, he's got a fully fleshed out tree, fully fleshed out POB sitting in front, as one of his links. And not to mention, he's also got a pretty comprehensive notes section breaking down everything you need to know, act by act, and then basically your aspirational final leveling stages, shield swaps, skill tree swaps into crit and things like that. So there's all the information that you could possibly need to be able to put the build together, put right in the table or on the table in front of you, and it makes it extremely accessible for newer players. The other thing is he's actually made this build in particular for those newer players coming from D4, and I think that's pretty cool because it's going to be a lot of D4 players playing PoE this league. Anyway, yeah, check out his build and his guides. The links will be in the description. This would be my second pick for a really good league starter that'll get you through to the end game early on. Okay, so the third build that I'm going to feature here is from TheMehMetBozlak, which I've featured him on past curations, and he's been a pretty solid build creator over the years. So basically, this is a Toxic Rain Trickster. Now, one of the best things about the Trickster is the kit that it provides us. Now, it doesn't use armor like your conventional builds. It uses a lot of evasion, and this one in particular gets to like 57,000. Now, this is talking like, and this isn't even like end game gear. Like, you could get way better gear than what's on this, to be honest with you. But it's not terrible gear. Now, from a league starter standpoint, there's not a lot of explanation in his video about how to get there, but there is a forum link that does sort of talk to that to, you know, a certain degree. But this build sort of just comes together. It's not using anything ridiculous. It doesn't have any ridiculous like awaken jewels and things like that. It's relatively straightforward to put it together, and it, from what I can see, will just basically work because it's pretty cool. Now, the way that Toxic Rain works is fundamentally you shoot as many projectiles as you can, and you have what are called pods. The pods overlap, and the more the pods overlap, the more damage that you do with the Toxic Rain ability. It hits everything in a huge AoE, and then basically just applies damage over time and rips through everything. Now, basically talking about some of the defensive layers that this does currently have. Now, it does have evade chance. It does have 100% spell suppression, which is heavily enabled from the Trickster Ascendancy, because you get spell break at 20% spell suppression straight away. Makes it a hell of a easily defensive build. And then on top of that, you've got things like One Step Ahead, which gives you an action speed boost, and everything around you runs at 92%. So when this comes to mapping and things like that, and for most bossing, this build's quite effective. From a league start standpoint, you really can't go wrong with Toxic Rain. If you don't want to play this variation, definitely TR Champion is another good option to look at. And I'll put a link in the description to another build that's a TR Champion build as well to refer to. If you don't want to go the Trickster route and you want to go the route of Champion, then you can absolutely choose to do that. Now, is this build good in Delve? Probably not, because it's an evasion build, but it's good everywhere else in the game. So there is that too. Anyway, that's the third build that I'm going to feature on this list. Alright, so the fourth build we're going to look at here is actually from a content creator called Allie, and it is the Impending Doom build. Just the name sounds awesome in its own right. Basically how this works is it takes the Occultist Ascendancy and applies things like Profane Bloom, so you get like full screen pops. And basically you use your curse skills. So in this case, we've got Enfeeble in the setup that she's provided. And you use your curse to proc Impending Doom. And then that causes a huge AoE effect, which basically blows everything up on the screen. Is it really cool? Yes. Does it scale two ways? She explains there's two ways that it scales, either through dot, or you can do it with crits. In this case, she's provided the dot variation of the build that applies poisons, which I actually think is pretty cool. Now, she's also got in this setup a full leveling guide with everything that you need to know about the build, stemming from Act 1 through to, you know, everything, Act 2, bandits, all that sort of jazz. So the notes section is quite comprehensive and very easy to follow. And as far as the gearing in the endgame, the only thing that's going to be moderately hard to get is going to be the Eternal Struggle. And it's not even moderately hard, because it drops in low tier pinnacle bosses, which whatever the dude's name is, yeah, it drops off him. But yeah, everything else is relatively cheap, like Icefang Orbit, Dendrobates, and stuff like that. It's all not insane gear to get in the first few days of League, and all for dirt cheap. Even the wand she's using is Apep's Rage, which isn't like insanely expensive these days. And before you throw shade at me for that comment, I just checked it's 1C on the market, because I know someone will be like, Apep's Rage is expensive. No, it's not. Stop that. That's ridiculous. Anyway, moral of the story, really solid build. Now, is it tanky? It's sort of moderately tanky. It gets to like, well, it's not really tanky. It gets to 45,000 effective hit pool, which arguably is not like Delve level tank ability, but it is definitely good enough to do maps and endgame Where it makes up for is you just get stupid damage, and it gets up to like 9.2 million here based on how the tree's set up. There's multiple settings set up in the tree as well, so a lot of efforts went into sort of crafting this build and getting it working. But yeah, definitely check out the video. Her explanation in the video of how the build works mechanically and also in great detail is very, very good. And yeah, this would be the fourth build that I'd recommend in this listing of potential League starters for you for 3.22. Okay, so the final build on this list is going to be a classic from 2 leagues ago, and it is the Poison SRS Necromancer. Now, is this build still playable? Abso-bloody-lutely. The reason why it dropped off is because some accessibilities to certain things like United Dream decreased when they changed that last league, but it's not a build breaker, and you can generally get up to 100% chance to poison on your SRS minions by just inserting a few more ghastly eyes. Now, the gearing setup that he's provided in the POB is actually pretty moderate, to be honest with you. It's quite easy to level this this build up. And, you know, things like the Jinx Juju is not really something that will break the bank. It's like a 1 to 2C item. And things like Darkness and Thrones and whatnot are pretty easy to get as well. So it's not unachievable by any measure. Now, as far as the POB that he's got, it's absolutely comprehensive. It's very good. So basically you've got act by act leveling in the notes section through to any other important information that you need, the specters that you should be using, how to craft your gear early on. He's got pretty much everything in there to give you enough information to put it together. Now, that being said, this being a League starter tree and League starter setup, this build can go way further than what he's provided, but it gets up to like 5 million DPS, which is actually pretty low considering Poison SRS can like get to uber killing without much effort. But this build will get you started and will get you through the end game, and then obviously beyond that point you'll have to look to, you know, how do you enhance this build, and that's pretty much how it goes with some of these league starters, or most of them actually. But overall, Poison SRS was a great build last league. It just dropped off because people's perception of the build changed, but it was still extremely strong last league, as it was in the previous league, and will continue to be a strong contender for league start at this stage as well. Anyway, that's my 5th build that I'm going to feature in this list. Okay, so I hope this video gave you some more ideas on what to play at League Start. I really tried to trawl builds like that were not as common as what other creators are putting up in this one to sort of give variety, and that's what I think I've achieved here. We've sort of just picked out of every part of the tree to sort of put something really cool together with a list of very different builds and or classic builds that maybe you didn't know are still playable, but they're still out there ticking around. Definitely with all the creators featured here, make sure you hop onto their channels. All the links will be in the description to their videos, and make sure you give them a like and a sub to their channels or follow their Twitches and stuff like that. All these guys have done a really excellent job in providing very comprehensive trees, and yeah, it's actually a pleasure to go through and listen to each of their builds and how they've constructed them. They're very well explained. Anyway, until next time, don't forget to like and sub to the channel. Don't forget to follow my Twitch, because I can't stream on YouTube and Twitch anymore, thanks to new TOS rules. And anyway, follow the Twitter, and until next time, stay filthy, and I'll see you guys at League Start. Alright, cheers guys, bye.